So still talking about designing studies. Now we're going to shift gears a little bit away from our sample surveys. So a sample survey aims to gather information about a population without disturbing the population in the process. So a sample survey would be one kind of observational study. Other observational studies watch the behavior of animals in the wild, or maybe even like you guys see when teachers are observed. Observational studies could be between interactions that happen between a teacher and their students. This chapter mostly talks more about experiments over observational studies, which is a very, very different way to produce data. So, in contrast to observational studies, experiments don't just observe individuals or ask them questions. They actually actively impose some treatment to measure the response. So, experiments can answer questions more like, does aspirin reduce the chance of a heart attack? An observational study can never answer that question. Can yoga help increase the longevity of human life? You'd actually have to see if yoga would have that effect on it. It's not just an observational study. Okay, so the goal of an observational study can be to describe some group or situation, to compare groups, maybe even to examine relationships between variables. So the purpose of an experiment, however, is to determine whether the treatment actually is going to cause some change in a response. So an observational study, even one based on a random sample, is actually just a poor way of gauging the effect that changes in one variable would have on another. To see the response to a change, you must actually impose the change. So you must actually give that treatment. So our goal, if you want to see cause and effect, an experiment is the way that you have to do. An experiment is the only source of fully convincing data if you want to understand a cause and effect relationship. So for this reason, the distinction between observational study and experiment is one of the most important in statistics. Okay. So just to kind of quickly, not that it's a difficult concept to understand, but kind of like what is the difference between an observational study and an experiment, okay? So trying to figure out is there a way that crickets choose their mates? So based on observations, so an observational study, this would look more like scientists or whomever would base their observations that they make in nature if they suspect that female crickets choose their mates on the basis of their health. So they're actually going to observe the health of male crickets that mated. Where an experimental study would be deliberately infecting some males with intestinal parasites and see whether females tend to choose healthier over the ill male crickets. Okay. So observational study versus experiment. So observational studies of the effect of one variable on another often fail because of confounding between explanatory variable and one or more lurking variables. So this is an idea that we have spoke about a little bit before. We've never fully got too much in depth about it, but we have heard of this before. So we saw that with linear regression, that you actually might see that there is a relationship between two things that have absolutely nothing to do with each other. And it's not that they have a relationship with each other, it's that there is some other variable going on that's making you see a relationship between those, despite the fact that there's not a direct relationship. So observational studies of the effect of an explanatory variable on a response variable often fail because of the confounding between an explanatory variable and one or more other variables. So well-designed experiments should take steps to try to prevent confounding. The uh, so biggest thing is that you need to make sure that you are aware, or I should say that you beware of the influence of other variables and what they can have um, on the effect of an experiment. Okay. Let's call that quiz 4 video 1.